Welcome to Biz Dev Live. I am so excited to talk to you about self-care and self-validation today. Imposter syndrome, whatever you want to call it, that feeling that you aren't enough. We're here to tackle that today because you are master of your subject. And while there is always somebody that might be quote unquote better or more knowledgeable or more savvy, Kathy Leckey is going to talk about there's only one you, and you are going to do it differently than anybody else does it. And your mastery, your knowledge on the subject is important and valuable. So we're going to validate you, validate that piece of it. And we're going to talk about self-care today. Stay with me. We'll be right back after the Biz Dev Live theme.
Biz Dev Live, Biz Dev Live. Weekdays at 11 Eastern Time, live. Biz Dev Live, Biz Dev Live. Weekdays at 11 Eastern Time. Leadership and motivation, empathy and inspiration, Biz Dev Live, Biz Dev Live. Business development, not even selling it. Biz D with C, brought to you by Cameron T. Biz D with C, brought to you by Cameron T. This is business development, not even selling it. This is business development, not even selling it. Business development, not even selling it. Biz Dev Live, Biz Dev Live. Biz Dev Live. This is business development, not even selling it.
I gotta give a shout out to Angie Legg, who has been missing in action for a while. Angie, so glad to see you in the community, on the chat. Tammy checking in. Very cool. Guys, let us know where you're tuning in from. I always love hearing about that. Let me introduce you to Kathy Leckey. Got Braden Daniels, the magician, leadership master over there checking in. Thanks so much. Kathy Leckey, author of My Self-Care Sugar Honey Iced Tea, My Self-Care Shit. The Workbook, is a TEDx speaker, mentor, and organizer, a contributing author in the Standing O book series, coach of Healing From Codependency, works alongside Scott Macgregor at SomethingNew and Talent Champions Council as a coach on healing from codependency, mother and more. Kathy grew up near Buffalo, New York, go Bills, and now lives on the Connecticut Shoreline, where she spends a lot of her time by the beach. Watch her TED Talk, The Choices We Make, and learn more about self-care and healing from codependency at kathyleckey.com. Please welcome to the show the amazing, the kinetic Kathy Leckey. Thanks for being here.
Thank you, Cameron. And I see my good friend Nick Imbriglio from Passionately Pasta. He makes homemade pasta that keeps my fridge stocked. He's on
Very
the
cool.
phone. Yeah, so it's great to be here. Love it.
Awesome. So talk to me about how you help people right now. Obviously, you know, we're talking about the self-care thing. We're talking about how you lift people up, but talk to us how you kind of do that. And then we'll kind of get into the backstory here.
Yeah. So I coach people in healing from codependency, which really boils down to self-care. And a lot of what I'm doing is really teaching people how to take care of themselves and use self-care in ways that they didn't realize. So a lot of people will say, well, I go for a massage once a month, or I go to the gym every morning. But what we talk about in the groups and with my coaching clients is using every single day, minute to minute self-care practices, like using your breath, staying present, being aware of your surroundings and not getting too far ahead of yourself. So those are the things that we talk about all of the time, just to, we have all of this like mental stress. We're all exhausted. If you talk to anybody, they're talking about being so exhausted. A lot of times it's mental. It's not really physical exhaustion. So we're trying to rest our brains, get rid of those repetitive thoughts that are going on and on about all of the things that we have to do, all of the things that we want to do, and just stay present and focus on what we can do in the moment.
Love that. And I think, and I mentioned this on yesterday's show, the idea that these simple kinds of things, breathing, right? These are things that we take for granted, but they are the
Right.
basic line. So your physical fitness, your mental wellness, they're a part of any success package. You really just can't get anywhere if you can't breathe, right?
So they're simple, right? But they're not easy. So we talk about how to build them into our day, how to make it easier to remember them. We use our phone a lot. We write ourselves notes a lot. We have reminders pop up. I have one right now. And so what the things that we talk about setting healthy boundaries, about communicating, the things that I teach are simple. They're easy. They're just not they're not easy to remember. We're offering reminders. We all just need to slow down and listen to ourselves, which is really the main part of codependency, is just not being connected to ourselves. And we do that through our breath.
Yeah. I see it with my kids too. And my nieces and nephews, you know, I wasn't thinking about this as we were getting into it, but as you were talking, I was thinking, you know, the codependency on the phones, you know, feeling like you need that visual stimulation in order to be just present, right? Just to be there, right? You feel like you need that. And so being able to quiet that noise and know that you don't need it is such a big deal. So talk to me about this. I can't imagine you started out in life as a little girl thinking you were going to take on the codependency challenges of the world. So what did little Kathy Leckey want to be when she was growing up? Tell us how that journey went.
I always wanted to be a teacher. That's what I remember, playing in the basement with my friends or my stuffed animals. I always wanted to be a teacher. And so that's what I started out doing. I went to school. I was an elementary school teacher for years, and then I stopped to have my family. So I do feel like I'm, you know, back in the classroom. And I remember my freshman year of college in a Psych 101 class, and they sent around 3x5 cards and asked, what do you want? You know, what do you want to do in the future? And I wrote down, I want to change the world. And the teacher called me over after the class, and he was like, everybody else said they wanted to just, you know, be a teacher or graduate or something. But I really did always want to change the world. And as lofty as that sounds, I feel like with the healing from codependency, it actually does change the world for each person. It changes our relationships with everyone, with money, with food. It changes everything. And the beautiful thing about it is that it also, like you were talking about with your kids, I've got kids and they're watching me, they're learning from me, and it's changing. It actually changes generations when we really get into it.
Oh, absolutely.
Patterns. Yeah.
And there's no way to avoid being a teacher when you're a parent, right? You're automatically on the spot, whether you chose that profession or not. Here we go. Talk to me. I'm interested. What did your parents do? What kind of influence, you know, mentors did you have when you were growing up that wanted you, you know, made you sort of passionate about teaching?
My mother, it's interesting because my mom was, she was home with me when I was younger. She ended up working later on. But she was the ultimate volunteer. She helped everybody. She had a sister who was sick, and so she helped out a lot with that. But what I saw was that she helped so many other people that she wasn't taking care of herself. And so that was a lesson to me. And at times that's when people can start to feel selfish, or even be told that they're selfish when they set boundaries that are really, the boundaries are set because we believe that that our time and our energy and our health is worth something, that it's worth just as much as we would give it to someone else. So I learned by example. My parents were very, and they still are. I'm lucky to have both of my parents. They are very giving, very kind. And so I think that that's a lot of my personality.
And I missed it. What did you say your dad did?
My dad worked for the New York State Power Authority.
Oh, very cool.
He was a draftsman, and and he worked with lines, straight lines all the time. And so when he retired, and luckily he was able to retire earlier, part of his self-care was getting into arts. So he started to play guitar and paint, and those are the things that we talk about when we're talking about self-care, is finding the things that bring you actual joy that you have put off because you're either working too much, you think you don't have enough time, or you don't have enough money or education. But we find ways to bring those things into your life, no matter what you're going through. So that
and I gotta say, I love this piece of it, and I'm proud of your dad.
I am too.
I as a dad, I have 4 kids, right? And so, right now there's like definitely like a list of things. First of all, I was working with a client in their home, and this guy's a Goldman Sachs guy, and he had taken up the guitar, and I found myself, beautiful home. But the thing I was jealous of was that he was putting time into learning the instrument. I was like, man, that's something I want to do. And these are things that, there is a money side to it, time side, obviously, to it, but it's just like doing it, right? It's just making it a priority and doing it. And then another piece, my wife is a big fan of cumbia music. She likes to dance to cumbia. Now I can bachata and I can merengue, but I cannot salsa or cumbia. And so I need to go get lessons for that. And so that's the other like big thing. Like I need to go and spend time on it. And every time we're out, I'm like, oh, I got to do it. And so those kind of things. So this is just a message, a nice PSA for folks. If you're thinking about doing something, stop waiting, go do it.
Right. Because even if you don't have the time or the money, you're able to listen to it, right? Like YouTube has free music. So just bringing the music into your life somehow, going to a live show, if you can, there are always ways to just build it into your life somehow. And what I love about what you said is that you notice someone else doing it and you were like a little bit jealous. Those are the signs, because what happens is when we're really in our codependency, we forget what we really love. And so people will say, I wouldn't even know where to start. I don't know what I like to do anymore. I don't know. And so I tell them, look for signs when you see someone doing something that makes you a little bit jealous, no matter what the block is that you're telling yourself, that you don't have the time, the money, or the resource, whatever. Just make a note of that. And that's actually how the self-care, I like the word that you use, the workbook came to be, as I started telling people to make these lists. When you see something that you think you might have some interest in, write it down, because we forget about it.
Yeah. And I just put out the question to the audience. What are you putting? I want to hear some of these things that are fun out there that you're putting off, right? These are things that you want to do, but you put them on the list, you put it to the side. What are some of those things that you're putting off? I'd love to hear from folks.
For me, I always wanted to be a dolphin trainer, which is funny because that's a teacher too, I guess, some type of a teacher. So I'm not going to be a dolphin trainer, but I can go to the aquarium, right? And that's like something that I can build into my life. I can go to the aquarium and be in that environment, which I really love.
They build out the dolphin experiences, right? You can go swim with the dolphins.
Yes.
You can go volunteer with the aquarium to help with the trainers, right?
Yes, exactly.
There's ways to do it. Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that. So we're gonna have to do a follow-up show when you go hang out with the dolphins.
Yes.
All right. So talk to me. You talked a little bit about your parents' influence on you. I love that. And I definitely had stories in my youth of watching friends of mine that they were taking care of family members, and the same thing was true. And I remember having that conversation with them, and I use this analogy. Hopefully I'm using the right word for all my literature professors out there, but this idea that if you're a tugboat, right, and you're going to go and help somebody, if you got a leak, right, in your boat, you can't get that big boat to shore until you fix yourself, right? You have to take care of yourself. You can't help anybody if you're going to go down, right? And so, and a lot of people do the whole airplane analogy, right? You put the mask on yourself before you put it on the kids, and that's sort of a touchy thing. No, I'm going to put it on my kid, right? But there's a reason, because if you don't take care of yourself, you can't take care of anybody else. And that is such a big deal. And I know, in terms of our topic today, that's really, that's it, right? That's the whole kit and caboodle.
Exactly.
Talk to me about what in your career sort of started highlighting, what in your life sort of highlighted to you these codependency issues and this self-care piece that made you passionate about it.
So it goes back forever, because when I look back at my codependency, I can trace it back to early childhood. But what happened for me is that I was about 10 years ago, I had, quote unquote, the perfect little family. And my now ex-husband ended up going to prison and left me responsible for the kids, the finances. I had to completely, recreate myself. And during those years that it took, I found out that I was really strong and I could handle anything that came my way, which took me a while to learn. And once I learned how strong I was, it was, somewhat of a relief. It was like, okay, no matter what happens, I can do this. So fast forward a few years later, we were divorced. I was dating unsuccessfully. And then I ended up in a relationship that I thought was perfect, but turned out to be extremely toxic. And when that ended, I realized that I actually had a pattern of behaviors that was leading me into these unhealthy relationships. And I found them in friendships, I found them in work relationships, and I found them in romantic relationships. And so when I started to do the research and really dig into this, it came down to my behaviors that were codependent. And it didn't take me long to start feeling the impact of the healing. Once I started to really do the work, it was, I had been in therapy on and off, my whole life, but this work was what really, really, truly brought me inner peace, which is what I had been saying for years. I just want peace and stability. And that's what I found in the Healing from Codependency. And so I have a friend who's a therapist, and we decided to, he asked me to do the group coaching, and so it's just kind of evolved from there over the past 3 years with the
I love this. And let me just say this, because your strength, part of the lead up to this show, and one of the reasons I was so excited to talk to you, because you went through something that very few people will ever experience, thankfully, in their lives. But something that, just the stigma of being with somebody that was caught on the wrong side of the law, dealing with the family trauma that goes along with it, dealing with children, the marriage, all of these pieces. And so you more than most understand the trauma, the mental trauma that goes into this, and to recover from that. And you came out of it, and you spoke on stages about your experience, and really moved the needle and move forward on this goal of changing the world. I think you're doing a great job with that. Talk to me just a little bit about, some of the pressures, just so folks understand kind of what was going on in your world and kind of what you had to do to sort of switch the narrative.
Well, I have to say that I had a beginner level understanding of some of the principles of healing from codependency. And that was, kind of taking things one day at a time. There was a saying that I really appreciated. It was, don't bleed till you're shot. It was like, we can't live out all of the nightmares that we think are about to happen, until they actually do, is when we'll deal with them. So it was a lot about staying present. It was a lot about not having regrets and not being incredibly sad about the tragedy of what we lost, and let that be in the past, and then not obsess over what I feared for the future. And that was financial stability, being able to feed my kids. It was emotional stability and how my kids would come out of this. And like you said, friendships, it really impacted everything. So I can't say that I did it. I can say I did it well, but I can't say I did it as well as I would have had I known what I know now. I was strong, but I was not always healthy. And so a lot of what I did do was distractions. I distracted myself with work. I distracted myself with friends. I went out a lot. I drank too much. All of those things were distractions from the feelings that I was actually feeling in the situation that we were in. So that's the big difference. That's the key. And somebody pointed that out to me back then. I just didn't understand. She said, you're so strong, but you don't have to be strong. You need to be healthy. And it was too far away from me at that point. But what I did do was I just knew that what I was going through had to be for a reason. I felt it. And I just knew that there was a better way, that there had to be a better way. And I kept looking for it, and I kept trying different things. I tried all kinds of, I did float tanks and Reiki and meditate. I tried everything. And that's the thing. Like, I think you said that at the very beginning, is that each person is different. And so what self-care is for me could be completely different for you. For some people, it's a hike in the woods. For some people, it's gardening. It can be anything that keeps you in the moment, keeps you where your feet are, and just stops your brain. We can't stop the thoughts from coming, but we can settle them down a bit, and we can stop attaching to them and letting those thoughts carry us away.
I love that. And I want to shout out Yolanda. Yolanda was saying her list is long. We had Nicholas in the comments that said traveling the shore, pick up a musical instrument, find more time in general, and always make more pasta. Right. And then I don't know why it's not showing up here in my StreamYard, but Yolanda just said first on the list is sleep. She says she had a long list, right? And so the first on the list is sleep and rest. And so I'm sort of surprised at that answer, but I shouldn't be, right? Because I think that's something that I see. One, and Yolanda, don't take this the wrong way, because I know you're not one of my young students that are on the college career thing, but one of the challenges I often see for folks in the college career, and this is one of my areas that I'm particularly passionate in. I volunteer for an organization that does college career prep called soundbusiness.org. But one of the usual first conversations I'm having with some of these students that are, trying to get their grades on, they're trying to look at their future, right? They're trying to do things right now in this moment to get them prepared for whatever that journey is going to be. And often I find myself looking at their sleep schedule. And so it's a really interesting thing. And we were talking about some of these basic things, but that can be hard. And so if you're a mother and you're trying to fit in all the things you need to do in the day and work, sleep and rest can be really high on the list of things that sort of take a back seat to everything else, right?
And I would look at that, what are the boundaries because sleep is something that's not, just for you, but that's something that everybody deals with. So what are the boundaries that we're setting for ourselves? Are we saying no? Are we turning our phone off at 9 o'clock? Are we telling work that we're not going to answer calls after 7? What are our boundaries? And our boundaries are not selfish. They are to protect ourselves. And once we believe that we're worthy of protecting ourselves like we would protect anyone else, especially if we relate it to how we would protect a child, we would never let someone come in and wake them up once they're asleep. We start to protect ourselves in the same way. We start to tell people that we, whatever it is that's healthy for us. And again, our boundaries are different and unique to each of us. They're not the same. But yes, the basics. Are you drinking enough water? Are you getting sleep? Are you getting some outdoor time? Maybe a 10-minute walk. We really start with the basics. Just to, take 10 minutes to say, I'm not going to take any calls for 10 minutes is really hard. We actually start practicing with 1 minute of breathing. On all of our calls, we start out with 1 minute of either a breathing exercise or a meditation. And at the end of it, everybody looks around like, oh my God, that was so relaxing, so calming. And it was
and I'm laughing because I've been there at that meeting. We're all sitting there and like, we all started out the exercise like, all right,
Right.
whatever, we're going to breathe
Exactly.
now. And then you're at the end of it like, oh.
Right. But how often do you take 1 minute out of your day to just sit and breathe?
And it's
We don't.
and I can't highlight this enough, right? Because I find myself, and I don't know how many people that are watching find themselves in this, but it's things that I know that I don't do, right? So I know when it gets late at night, I should just go to bed, but I'll dig into the cabinets and start snacking on all the things that I shouldn't be snacking on, I shouldn't be eating on. But I do it because I'm in that level. I'm sleep deprived. I'm seeking whatever comfort, right, in the food to keep me awake, because I feel like the necessity is I need to stay awake to do whatever stupid thing that I'm probably not going to do, or it's going to take me 3 times as long to do as if I just went to sleep and got up and did it, right? So
And what the key is that you said in that is that you already know, right? Like we already know what we need to do, what we have to do. It's taking the time to be quiet enough to listen to it and then to follow on it. Because some of the things we know what we need to do, but we don't want to, right? And so sometimes people are in a toxic relationship or a toxic workplace. They know they need to leave, but to do that would require a lot of discomfort. And so they don't want to. And that's when we go into denial, which is a huge part of the codependency. It's just not being willing to see it because we're afraid that we can't handle it. But when it comes down to it, we can. And Yolanda also said something about being ashamed to say that her list is long. And I just wanted to say that years ago, when I very first worked with a life coach myself, we did a call and he asked me to envision my life in, a few years. And I did. I actually wrote down pages and pages. I still have it. And after that, I avoided talking to him I saw him every week and I avoided talking to him for probably 6 weeks. And he finally came up to me and he said, "You're avoiding me." And I said, "Yes, I am." Because when I wrote down my ideal, my dream life, it was so far away from my reality. This was when I was going through everything, that it put me into a deep depression. I was in bed I was depressed for 3 days. And it was in working with him that I started to learn the things that I'm now coaching, some of the things that I'm now coaching. But even though there's that big disconnect, it doesn't mean that it's not achievable. So many of the things that are on my list of what I had imagined in my life have come true. And I'm actually in the process of kind of making the next, that was like a 5-year plan. And I'm ready to make the next 5-year plan because I saw the relationships that I asked for in my vision improve. My finances improved. I was able to buy a condo last year, which I never dreamed I'd be able to do after everything that we'd gone through. My work relationships have changed. And actually, when you first approached me, and this was biz dev, and I was trying to, kind of figure out how this connected, but the lessons in self-care and the lessons in healing from codependency have impacted my career. I have multiple jobs, but my job with Scott Macgregor, it's impacted me in that role tremendously. So my hashtag when I post on LinkedIn is always codependency at work, because we come to realize how much it impacts us at work and at home.
Yeah, and I love the connection between this. I was saying this at the beginning of the programs before we even jumped on, but this connection, if you're in sales, right, you're developing your business, and I use biz dev in the broader sense of the word, right? You're developing yourself, the personal development side, you're developing your business, so all the aspects of your business, not just the sales component of your business, but the actually building a business, right? A lot of people as entrepreneurs, they get started and they build themselves a job, but you want to build yourself a business. And so the personal development side of that is you want to build yourself a strong mental fitness routine that allows you to not only do a great job for yourself, taking care of yourself so that you can show up and actually build that business, but you can be a great teacher, right, to the people that you're leading. And I don't care if you're a solopreneur and you're working with vendors, or you're, leading a small business or a mid-sized business or large business. If you aren't taking care of yourself, right, and we're talking about these things, and I love Jennifer's talking about getting the exercise. I think we've all seen stories about folks that just, through one challenge or another with the health, right, they were on top of their business, but they weren't on top of their health. I've had people that are younger than me pass away due to challenges with health. I think we've all seen that, over the past few years with the pandemic. People that were in worse off shape were at worse risk from the health challenges, right? And so, it's really an all-encompassing thing, this health thing. And then when you're able to get on a call and we talk about things, the go-giver, Bob Bergen, you're able to identify a way to help somebody. There's no better way to develop those relationships than to actually be able to reach out, notice what somebody's going through, and help them. And so hopefully somebody watching this show, hearing your story, that's exactly what people are more able to do. That's the tools that, in my mind, I want to give to the people that are partaking from these programs, right?
And it also has to do with speaking up for yourself. If you're in a meeting and you don't feel like your opinion is valuable, or you might think your opinion's valuable, but you might think that the people in the room have a more valuable opinion. And so you hesitate to share what you're thinking. So just being confident in yourself is self-care. Speaking up for yourself is self-care.
Absolutely. No, I couldn't agree more. And I think, we're getting into that piece too, like, that your experience is valuable. And so many times people can feel like, for one reason or another, that the general opinion is that your experience, right, isn't the most important in the room, and getting to that place of understanding that I hold my own, right? I have my spot. I also want to just bring a comment before, because I'm going to throw up your takeaways onto the screen here. But before we get into that, I thought Oscar made a great comment, talking about mobile devices in the sense of being blurring the line between work and personal time. I think we are, and people talk about this, in the sense of, now versus a long time ago. I think we've always had distractions. And if you choose to dig into the distractions, whether it was the radio back in 19 whatever, right, or the TV, or the newspaper, or books, or staring off into the tree. Right. My 11-year-old talks about he's really into staring at the trees. I don't know what that's all about, but he's like into staring at the trees.
Like
so he gets distracted in class because he's staring off at the trees. I'm like, okay. We all can get distracted. We get to choose, though, how we respond to those distractions. And so finding a way to understand, right? We talked about it. I was saying it. You said it. We know what we're supposed to do. We know we're not supposed to be staring at the screen and, listening to all these alerts and dependent on this stuff. So we have the choice to turn it off and manage it and say no. I love that. And Jennifer Henderson says, be confident. Confidence is important. I agree. Braden Daniels talking about, I created a desk on my treadmill, watching and working from the treadmill. Love it. Getting that exercise in. So we got the self-care going on. We like it. All right, so let's get into some of these takeaways, Kathy. We got first one up. Google anything and everything you do not know how to do yet. Talk to us about that. And I love this. There's got to be a word. If you don't know the word, Kathy, hopefully one of the audience members, but there's got to be a word that sort of describes this idea. Because I mention my kids a lot, but the idea that, especially my 11-year-olds come to me, Dad, what about this? I'm like, Google it. There's got to be something that's beyond the Google. Like, hey, you have all the internet, the information at your fingertips.
Yes.
Go find it.
So it's being resourceful for
There
sure.
You go.
Yeah, it's being resourceful. But it's also, in my opinion, a bigger issue. It is trusting that you can figure it out. It's trusting that you either have the skills, you can learn the skills, or you can find someone else who has the skills to help you do what you want to do. The reason that I wrote that, and I wrote that a while back when we had talked, is because I had just put out my first book, and that's how so I'm a part of the Talent Champions Council, which we talked about, and every week or two we have these guest speakers who are very successful in their field, either athletes, CEOs, whatever it is, and they really encouraged me through all of their, through all of the things that I heard, to just get this book done. In my mind, the workbook was supposed to come after the book, the main book, which I'm still working on. But I decided in my Healing from Codependency to just put the workbook out because that was ready to go. But I didn't know how to do that. I knew some pieces, I didn't know others. So I would do the piece that I knew, and then I would let it sit because I just was kind of defeated. Like, I can't do this. And then I would Google it and I would get to the next step. And so that was a lesson in healing from codependency, in believing in myself, believing that I could figure it out, and actually doing the steps. And that was really my main goal, was just to prove to myself that I could get that book from beginning to being on Amazon.com. That was the goal. And that is what builds trust in ourselves. Every time we do something that we say we're going to do, it builds trust in ourselves. And trust is a major issue in healing from codependency. So it's those little things that really, really stack up and mean a lot in our healing. So I Googled, how do you write a foreword? I just Googled everything.
And I love that so much. Keeping those promises to self. Yesterday was talking about the idea of, if you want consistent improvement in your life and you want to do that exercise every day, it's just making that time, whether it's just a minute of breathing, right? As we talked about. For me, if I want to have a nicer looking chest and biceps, doing those push-ups on a daily basis, not saying, I really want to do 100 push-ups in a row, but I don't want to do it right now, right? It's like keeping those small promises to yourself, because when you do it, man, 5 days down the road, 10 days down the road, 20 days down the road, it starts feeling really good to see that progress. Doing the physical fitness and stepping on the scale and eating right, like you start seeing the results and it's like, oh my goodness, I'm so happy about this. And so keeping those promises to yourself, those responsible pieces to yourself are such a big deal. And then I'm going to make a list and I'm going to do it. It's this small stuff, but it really feels good when you do it. And I find myself continually falling into the trap of not doing some of those things that I know I should do. Did I do a list today? No. Am I checking things off that list? No, because I didn't write the list down. And so getting into those great habits, making those habits easy for yourself, and then just doing
trusting ourselves is a huge key. And there's actually a blank list in the book where you can keep track of all the reasons why you can trust yourself. And sometimes they are small, like you're saying. Like I said, I was going to go to the gym at 6 and I went to the gym at 6. And then that translates beyond the gym, but into other areas of your life.
And I love you're probably familiar with this too, but like in setting your goals, not creating impossible things, right? Saying, I'm going to go to the gym every day, because the first day you don't go, now you've automatically failed and your motivation for it is all over. So just saying, I'm going to go this many times a week, or I'm going to do X, Y, Z, and something that's like an actual goal, not something pie in the sky fuzzy, right? I'm going to exercise more. Well, I went out and I did a sit up. That's more than I did yesterday. Done, right? Something specific, right?
Yes. Something that we're willing to commit to. And then we throw out the rest so that we don't beat ourselves up every day when we don't do it. We
Absolutely.
commit, we say what we're going to commit to, and then we stop worrying about the rest.
And I find myself, whenever I start setting these easy goals, oh, I can do one more. I can do X, Y, Z more, right? I can, I find myself, if I set these easy to accomplish goals and I commit to them, I find myself deeper diving and going a
Yes.
little bit more in. And so it's like incentive to set up more easy goals, because it's like, oh, look, more baskets, more wins. Let's go. Kathy, talk to us about no one knows all the answers and secrets.
Well, this was my thing. This was what I always thought, that everybody knew everything, and I was the last one to know. I used to say that as a joke all the time, like, why am I always the last one to know? But in reality, I really did believe that people knew how to be successful. People knew how to be parents. People knew how to run a business. People knew how to write a book. And that's just not true. And so in knowing that, it gives me back my power. I don't give everybody else the power and think that they know something that I don't know. So that's what that means. And I would say that's true for all of us. Nobody has all the answers. We look to everybody else and think that they're killing it. They're doing really well. In reality, oftentimes they're not. Sometimes they are, but we don't really know unless we know that person.
I love that. Yeah, I think it's a challenge for us when we see somebody walk down the street, and so they have something that looks amazing. It might be the fit body or the sports car. And the thing that I think is really important to realize is, they may be incredibly happy. They may have everything that they want and more, but that's not my life, first of all. And second of all, more than likely, they have their own set of issues and challenges that I probably don't want.
Correct. Right.
And so I think it's always important to realize, because we're always looking and we're saying, we're playing the comparison game. Their house is bigger than mine. They look like they're making more money, but we don't know the whole story. So first of all, what we're building up in our head probably isn't true. And it's neither here nor there. It's, my life is my life. And so if I want my life to be better, that's where my focus needs to be. And I find when I stop playing the comparison game, when I can talk my children out of the comparison game, and my wife out of the comparison game, life looks a lot better when you just are really grateful for what you have.
Yes.
And all the amazing blessings in your life. Because when you can stop looking at what you don't have and you start looking at all the things that you have, it's like, wow.
Yeah. A couple of years ago, my teenage son said to me, I don't know how you can say that you're achieving your goals when, we're still in a rental at this point, and, you drive a crappy car, whatever. Like, how can you say that? But he didn't realize at that point, all I wanted was that peace and stability. And I found that. I found the ability that I could, I knew that I could trust myself. I knew that I could handle our finances. All of those things were what I was craving, not the material things.
Yeah. And you talk to folks and you start getting down into the deeper stories. Me doing these interviews, I certainly see it, because you get, it's sort of the roots and hearing family stories and where people are. And you start to understand that, life is a complicated game. Just because somebody seems on top of the world doesn't mean they're not dealing with incredible challenges in their life. And so when you realize that it's an abundant world and there's a lot going on, you start realizing, you know what, I have a lot more to be thankful for than to be mad at or feel like, somebody owes me something or that kind of thing. Yes. Talk to me about no one has ever done it the way you will.
Well, that lesson first came to me when I was a teacher years ago, and I was newer to the school as a teacher, and we were setting up for an event, and I was so concerned about how it had always been done. Where does this go? What do we do? What do we do? What do we do? And somebody said, like, stop and just do it the way you think it should be done. Basically, trust yourself. You bring your own perspective to every problem, issue, challenge, whatever it is. And it is, again, about that comparison. Instead of thinking, how would someone else do this? And Scott Macgregor, I saw him make a comment on here. He is notorious for this. He'll start, something, and he'll say, I don't care how everybody else does it. This is the way I see it. This is the way we're going to do it. And it works. There's just something, magical about when you bring your own version of things to the world.
Shout out to Scott Macgregor. Shout out to Jordan Mendoza checking in.
Yeah, Jordan's in TCC.
Yeah, there you go.
And I saw he was here with you a little while ago.
Absolutely. So this idea that, the second guessing piece, right? We sit there and we say, well, that's not how I've seen it before. So, it doesn't look quite the right way because it's not the way that I've seen it done before. And I think it's one of those interesting things that in your business and in your life, right, when you put your personal touch on it, people are going to enjoy it more. I'm in the party space. I help people plan their events, and so I'm often on the phone with clients, and they're sitting there like, what's the proper thing to have?
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, when you go to somebody else's party, are you looking for what you like? Or are you looking to see kind of like what the character and flavor of what they like is? And typically you're like, oh, and you might be looking for the thing that you like, your standard go-to, but you're also probably pretty curious and probably pretty excited by, if there's a different kind of decor going on, if there's a different kind of flavor, if there's a drink that you haven't tried before, that looks interesting. That newness, right? You don't get that if everybody's coming from the standard playlist. So I love the idea.
And actually making choices for yourself and knowing what you really love is healing from codependency. That is self-care. We laugh, but it's not funny that people in our groups, they don't know what their favorite food is. They know what everybody else in their family likes to eat, but they don't know what their favorite food is. I talked to a woman about this last night. She's like, I don't know what to order. She said, I usually get what the kids would want to pick off my plate, but the kids weren't there. She had no idea what to get. We don't know how to pick a paint color. We don't know what our favorite color is. We're afraid that somebody else might not like it. What if it's, we worry too much about what other people think instead of just going with what we love.
I love that. And I love the idea that it really does excite people when you are individual, right? And it is yours, right? And so it gives you their flavor and who they are. And so, I find myself on a lot of these intro calls, and I'll be there and they'll be talking about, their business or their product. And I'm like, all right, I'm waiting for something that's actually special to you. Give it to me. And sometimes I don't get that. It's such a pleasure when I do, because I'm like, oh wow, okay, I just experienced something that I'm going to remember for a very long time, if not forever, because somebody gave me something that is them personally, their story. I've talked a lot about that on this show, and people sharing their story, and how that is one of your strongest, most amazing gifts that you can give people is your story. And so when you just this is my business, and this is what my business does, and this is what my product does, it doesn't really give anybody a special pizzazz, especially if that business is something that a lot of other people do.
And I got to experience that kind of decision-making process when I moved into this space, into this condo. I have sparkly light fixtures. I even bought a disco ball to hang from one of my plants. This is really a reflection of me. And I've heard people say that over the years, but I never knew how to reflect. I didn't know myself well enough to have a place that reflected me. And now it clearly does. And, some of the things are quirky or weird or whatever, but to me, they're meaningful. They're fun or beautiful to me, or whatever it is. So that's been fun. It's a lot of fun when you connect to yourself, when you can enjoy your own time, time with yourself, when you don't have to be distracted from yourself, when you know what you love to do. when you can communicate, it's just, life is a lot more fun.
Love that. And Regina says, yes, the story makes us unique. Thank you. So leave us with some last words here. I'm going to close this out with the BizDev Live theme. This has been amazing. I'm glad that we got some nuggets. Hopefully we've got some people checking their list so they can cross those boxes off. I'm talking to you, Yolanda, right? We're going to cross off some of those boxes. And for God's sake, let's get some rest in there.
Yes.
Kathy, thank you. Talk to us. Give us a last nugget. And hopefully people are going to check out your website, which I have on the screen, and connect with you on LinkedIn.
That would be great. Yes, definitely connect with me. I would love that. I would leave you with taking a breath. I would really just encourage you today to take 1 minute, set the timer on your phone for a minute, and just breathe evenly in and out for a minute and see how you feel. Breathing, we do it, subconsciously, but we need to practice getting our breath to be steady and calm. Meditating, using our breath again. We can't stop those thoughts, but we can practice just settling ourselves down. I believe that if you start to use your breath, that you will be less tired, less exhausted, and more able to do what you want to do during the day.
Making those decisions. This has been amazing. Thank you, Kathy.
BizDev Live, weekdays at 11 Eastern Time, live. BizDev Live, weekdays at 11 Eastern Time. Leadership and motivation, empathy and inspiration. BizDev Live, business development, not even selling it. BizD with C, brought to you by Cameron T. BizD with C, brought to you by Cameron T. This is business development, not even selling it. This is business development, not even selling it. BizDev Live. BizDev Live.